guys, let's run it back with Paul. Yes, let's crack on, guys. Hope you're all having a great day. Time to talk all things Brock Purdy. I know, you're pretty sick of me talking about Brock Purdy, but so all you already ever hear about is Brock Purdy's contract, yada, yada, yada. It, obviously, over in the US, in terms of the NFL, really wanted to sort of come from a different perspective, really, because it's all about who's got the leverage. What's he going to sign for? Is he going to sign? Is he going to hold out? And so what I'm going to do today, guys, is really sort of paint a bit of a picture, in this situation because ultimately, yes, from a purely contract situation, the 49ers hold leverage. They can obviously not pay him this year, then franchise tag him, and all these different elements. Um, First, point of sort of contention on that element is that look, first and foremost, if you don't rate that, if you don't rate him as a quarterback, why would you keep him anyway? Second of all, it's not exactly going to incentivize somebody to play amazingly well by treating somebody who's got you to a Super Bowl, being one of your best players, getting you there. Third of all, you've lost half of your talent. You're going to need great leadership, and so rewarding somebody with a contract that's pretty derogatory compared to his peers. It's not the greatest way to really go about achieving that. Fourth of all, they went all in on Trey Lance that backfired royally. So for every person that really mentions sort of Jimmy Garoppolo, I would mention Trey Lance. There's a trade-off on this front. Everyone goes, well, yeah, but Jimmy Garoppolo could do it for San Francisco, then that must devalue what Brock Purdy's done. Well, then ultimately Trey Lance couldn't do it, who's number one. They gave up the moon to get, and he couldn't do it. And so, it depends which side of the fence you fall on. A lot of people just tend to just harp on about the Jimmy Garoppolo doing well with San Francisco. Yet I would argue he had the peak of their talent in the rather than Purdy's had some of that talent on its decline in terms of its fitness and injury record. And I think he's carried the team a much, much more, and you can see that in his performances. Ultimately, and so he was their best player in the Super Bowl, wasn't McCaffrey. And so, yeah, let's really go sort of drill further. So I would say that yes, San Francisco hold leverage from the perspective that they could, not pay him this year or pay him the 5 million minimum, and then but obviously pay him, sort of the franchise tag, which I think was at 35 million or something like that. But ultimately, I think that he could just hold out, and that they're stuck with Matt Jones. And I don't care what anyone says. Matt Jones, he's not sort of he's not even half a Brock Purdy, let alone whole Brock Purdy. And so you're going down a route where you've paid people that weren't necessarily worthy of the contract, yet the person that is worthy of the contract isn't getting paid. And I think that let's have a really sort of drill down in terms of the sort of contracts that are out there at the moment to really get perspective of where he sits in sort of the pantheons. Look, ultimately, all things being equal, Patrick Mahomes should sit on top of the earnings, but then Tom Brady should have sat on top of the earnings. And so the realities of the NFL is that if you want to win, you need a quarterback that's also got a bit of awareness and wants to be a little bit selfless or structure in certain ways that enable him to win. Certain quarterbacks aren't all chasing the maximum now. I mean, I can make the argument that let's be honest, if that wasn't being paid the contract that he's being paid, and CD wasn't being paid the contract they're being paid, and Mika probably isn't, wouldn't get the contract that he's probably going to get paid, then they would have more money to go invest on the rest of the team. That's just a reality check, isn't it? It's like three people hog all the money. Nobody else has the money, to invest in other players. Well, whoop de do, you've got three superstars and no team. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with three, and that's ultimately that's just calling it out how the realities are. It's like, look, if you really want to win that much, give up some of your money. If Patrick Mahomes can give up his, let's be honest, there's no way in the world Dak Prescott should be earning more money than Patrick Mahomes. That's just silly, but that's just the way it is, isn't it? More for people that sort of invest it, on that side. But yeah, so we're going to really tackle some of these areas for you then, guys. So let's start off with the current earnings of quarterbacks at the moment. You've got Prescott at 60 million. I think Josh Allen, somebody said that I think he's guaranteed, or the way it's being structured, that he actually is the top earner now. But just in terms of, sort of where we're at the moment, you got Dak Prescott at 60 million. You got John. So I would say Purdy's better than Dak Prescott. I would say they both had great. I think Purdy had a phenomenal year. Credit with McCaffrey, but he was amazing as well. Prescott had a great year. Tended to get all the highlights, hence why he got MVP. But ultimately, it's done absolutely nothing in the playoffs. And Purdy's been superb in the playoffs, sort of multiple times. And so ultimately, playoffs carry far more weight than the normal season. And so Purdy, for me, is a better quarterback and more reliable under pressure. And so scrambles just as well, throws better and better under pressure. And so Purdy is better than Prescott for me. Don't really care whether you won MVP in the season. Ultimately, it's about what you do in the playoffs. Josh Allen is obviously not as good as Josh Allen. Joe Burrow, I would say, yeah, I would give Joe Burrow, on pure talent, yes, he is better than Purdy. He's better thrower of the ball. He's got a team to the Super Bowl, albeit with a phenomenal defense. You can't really pin the failures on Cincinnati. I mean, they're going down the same route as Dallas, basically overpaying all the offensive talent, taking all of the budget up on the offensive side. They're going to have no defense, and so you can't really see how a world in which Cincinnati are ever going to get to anywhere close to a Super Bowl because of the way that they've structured the team, and so they've done what they've done. Entertaining to watch. We'll never get near a Super Bowl the way that you just can't structure a team out. Dallas and Cincinnati have done. Three players carrying the budget. Three players carrying the budget. Or, well, three or four in Cincinnati if they get obviously the other do over the line. But yeah, you can't have a team built with three players just taking all of the budget. It just doesn't work that way. Trevor Lawrence, obviously, incredible waste of money. Yeah, they just paid for what if. At no point has Trevor Lawrence ever looked like this superstar that has been hyped up. If only Brock Purdy had one tenth of their fraction of the height Trevor Lawrence has had, it's insane. But I'm not digging him out, but he's never worth 55 million a year. He's closer to 35 million a year. At no point justified that. This is what I'm saying is, we'll come around to supply and demand in a minute. Jordan Love, once again, Purdy's better than Jordan Love, proven more than Jordan Love, done better impression more than Jordan Love. Jordan Love's got talent. I would say no more than what Purdy. I don't think he's got any more natural talent than Purdy has. And Purdy's done a lot more in the playoffs, so he's been paid 55 million. If I was Purdy's agent, I'd say, well, I'm at worst the equal of Jordan Love from a natural talent, and I've achieved far more under pressure when it matters. And I've done it being the best player on the pitch in the Super Bowl, rather than just everyone hyping, oh, you perform because you've got all the Avengers around you. Yeah, but if I'm the best of all those Avengers when we're playing the best, then equally I should get all the credit. And he was in the Super Bowl. He played amazing. So easily, Purdy better than Prescott, not as good as Allen, not as good as Burrow, miles better than Lawrence, better than Love, miles better than Tua. I would say, he's Jared Goff's a weird one, isn't it? Because did a good job at the Rams. Not obviously he's nowhere near as good as Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff done a good job at Detroit. Only lost really because of the injuries. Is he better than Purdy? I'm going to put him on the same level. I'm going to say, I mean, look, Jared. No, I'm going to put him on the same level because ultimately Jared Goff he's got one Super Bowl, but I think Purdy outperformed Goff in terms of his performances for San Francisco as opposed to Goff with the Rams and the way. Yeah, I'm gonna say that. I would say Purdy's worth far more worthy of 53 million a year than Jared Goff. They both had talent around him at all the times. Justin Herbert, I would say he's proven far more than Justin Herbert. He's on 52.5 million. One of the most hyped up quarterbacks. Yeah, He's not delivered a fraction upon. Does he have talent? Yeah, but he doesn't. At some point, it's got to equal something. I don't think the team's been awful. At times, having injuries and things, but yeah, I would say Purdy's far more proven than Herbert. Some people, the problem is that everyone goes down a talent route, but talent without actual execution. Talent is more than just how fast you can run or how far you can throw. It's also about your mindset, how you perform under pressure. Did Tom Brady have the best arm ever? Did he have the most athletic prowess? No. But was he one of the best leaders? One of the best minds at quarterback? Sure, absolutely. And look, Lamar Jackson, 52 million. Look, Lamar Jackson's worthy of his 52 million because he's phenomenal during the preseason. Awful in the playoffs, phenomenal during the preseason. I mean, he's people harp on about that. Dak Prescott's not on Lamar Jackson's level in the regular season. And Lamar's much better than Dak in the playoffs, albeit Lamar's rubbish compared to Mahomes and Allen, and even Hurst and Purdy, and about 10 others when it comes to the playoff performances. And Jalen Hurst, well worth his money, won his Super Bowl. He's backed up a great season where he went to the Super Bowl, played phenomenal. Rough season the previous season due to the fallouts. Bounced back phenomenal last year. Um, Look, he is what he is. He may not be necessarily be rated as the most talented compared to a Mahomes or an Allen or Lamar, but equally he's very good with his legs, can throw with his arm, and who it's one of these situations with the NFL. The person that runs the fastest, the person that's the strongest, the person that throws the furthest, doesn't necessarily mean they're the better player. It just means that they have a degree of talent and degrees of strengths. But ultimately, there's more facets that make a great NFL player than just the pure strength, speed, sort of distance you can throw. There's mental toughness. There's strategy. There's leadership. So many different resilience. And he's miles better than Kyler Murray at 46. So ultimately, you look at all of those. If you're an agent for Brock Purdy, you'd say sit out. Good luck with Mac Jones. Ultimately, that I'm going to go into other areas, for you guys in a minute now in terms of the supply and demand and the market. That's open for Brock Purdy, and I'm often hearing like, well, where's the market for Brock Purdy? Well, we'll come on to the market for Brock Purdy in a minute because I think everyone's having a little bit of a sort of a forgetful season when it comes to Purdy. Like, oh, there's no market for Brock Purdy. Yeah, everyone must have a past it. Aaron Rodgers. Oh, there's no market for Brock Purdy. Yeah, but everyone must have a market for Russell Wilson, who's past it. Oh, there's no market for Brock Purdy yet. There's a market for Geno Smith and all these different players. There's no market for Brock Purdy yet. There's a market. That's absolute lunacy. Brock Purdy's a top 12 rated quarterback in the NFL. That's just fact. Look, he's better than Prescott, better than Lawrence, better than Love, better than Tua. For me, at worst, on par with Goff, I would say slightly better than Goff. For me, he's on par with Herbert. I know that will shock many because Herbert's ridiculously high, but for me, he hasn't proven enough. No, he's not as good as Lamar. Hurts, you got to give Hurts his edge there, obviously ahead of him, and Miles better than Murray. So we've covered those off, guys. So now let's look at the supply and demand element because everyone talks about the contract. Oh, it's all in the favor of San Francisco. Well, first of all, their backup plan is Mac Jones. Well, good luck with that one. That'll be a great season. On top of losing all of your talent, you're trying to scrimp that much. You're trying to basically drive the talent that you've got out in the team to basically have Matt Jones basically take it forward. So let's look at the teams that have got quarterbacks. The Bears have Caleb Williams was rubbish last year. Yeah, he's got the talent around him this year. I'm a Bears fan. Let's see. It's time for him to step up. We've covered Jared Goff. I think he's the equal, if not slightly better, but at worst case, the equal, better than Jordan Love. JJ McCarthy hasn't proven anything, so far Brock Purdy's ahead of him. Yeah, you can say, oh, well, JJ McCarthy may be a superstar. He may be nothing. He may be Trey Lance. We don't know what he is. So until such time as JJ McCarthy has proven he's Jaden Daniels, or a superstar quarterback, or an Andrew Luck, or whatever, then ultimately at the moment, yeah, Brock Purdy's ahead of him on a pecking order. You can't just pick on potential. Um, he's better than Penix Jr. He's better than Bryce Young. He's better than Derek Carr. He's better than Baker Mayfield. Um, yeah, no, he is better than Baker Mayfield. Ultimately, he's done far more in the playoffs, done far more in the regular season, and I think, I think it's great what Baker Mayfield's done, but he is better than him. Better than Kyler Murray, not as good as Matthew Stafford. Better than Sam Darnold. CJ Stroud's a funny one. CJ Stroud, I'm I'm gonna put more. I don't know where to put CJ Stroud because I don't think he's always phenomenal. I didn't think he was great during the season last year. Picked it up a little bit in the playoffs, but not great during the season for me. I'm going to say Purdy's better than Stroud at this point. I know some people love Stroud. Maybe the potential upside of Stroud long term is higher, but given at this current point in time, Purdy's ahead of him for me. I'm sure that there'll be people that love Stroud far more and think I'm nuts. I think you get blinded by what he may become. I don't think he had a great season last year. He good for season first season, good in the playoffs. Recovered a little bit in the playoffs. This season. Yeah, I'd still take Purdy over Stroud myself. Some would take Stroud on what he may become. I can understand the ceiling on Stroud, but he isn't at that ceiling. I'm dealing with what's in front of me now and not necessarily what may or may not happen. Miles better than Richardson. Miles better than Lawrence. Miles better than Levitt's. Better than Bo Nix. Bo Nix maybe has a lot of potential, but it isn't at the level of Birdie yet. Bo Nix may well surpass him by miles. Got loads and loads of potential. I understand that. Not naive to that. I'm just saying what is right now, not what may be. Obviously not Mahomes. Mahomes is best in business. Better than Gino. I think he's better than Herbert, or at least on par with Herbert. Better than Dak for me. Better than Winston. Slightly behind Hurts now because of his performances, and behind Jane Daniels because his supreme natural talent, and what a fantastic sort of debut season, for himself. Not as good as Allen. Better than Tua. Better than Drake May. Better than Fields. Not as good as Lamar. Albeit Lamar needs to turn up in the playoffs soon. Otherwise, MVPs in regular season, start looking a little bit meaningless. I don't know, meaningless. I mean, it does count what you do in the regular season, but ultimately it counts a lot more when you're doing it under the most pressure in the biggest of games. I just don't think he does that. He's a very good sort of a flat track bully. He's very good during the season, but just not when it counts in the biggest games, unfortunately. As I say, Joe Burrow is slightly ahead of natural talent. Obviously Deshaun Watson, miles better than Deshaun Watson, better than Rudolph. And so, like, people talk about supply and demand for Brock Purdy. Well, look, Pittsburgh would bite your arm off for Brock Purdy. Cleveland would bite your hand off for Purdy. Jets would. And the Dolphins, whether they would or not, I reckon the Dolphins would now if they could find a way to get off to her. Obviously, Washington wouldn't. They're happy for years. Philly are happy. Giants would bite your right arm for Brock Purdy. Dallas won't because they're wedged to Dak Prescott forever. Ridiculous contract that was. I can't see San Diego moving off Herbert. They seem wedded to him as well. Oakland, I'm not sure how much they're wedded for Gino for the long term. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down, if Brock Purdy has a fall like that, somehow he ends up, at Oakland, Las Vegas Raiders even. I wouldn't be surprised if Purdy ended up there somewhere in the future because you think Tom Brady could definitely see and recognize that talent. Wouldn't shock me if that was somewhere down the line. Obviously, Kansas City never moving off Mahomes. Can't see Denver moving off Bo Nix. Tennessee probably going to pick. They obviously got number one draft pick, so they're going to pick somebody in the draft high. That doesn't mean it's going to pan out. Um, would they take Brock Purdy and then trade back? If you could get Brock Purdy for 50 million a year, but then somehow trade back, somehow trade the number one draft pick back to get a Travis Hunter or Carter. I don't know what you'd have to give up, to get all these sort of strategies, but I think Tennessee would bite your right arm off for Brock Purdy. It doesn't, I mean, with all due respect, sort of Cam or Shador are not Brock Purdy. They're not. I don't care. Or, you can hype up the draft as much as you like. This year's quarterback draft is not as good. Neither one of them as good as Brock Purdy. Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville was obviously tied into him. If they had any sense, they'd find a way to try and get Brock Purdy if they could get him. But that requires them somehow getting out of the contract with Lawrence. Indianapolis should be biting your arm off for Brock Purdy. Houston aren't going to move off Stroud. Uh, yeah, Darnold at Seattle. Obviously just joined. Can't see that moving anywhere. Stafford. That'd be an interesting one, Stafford. Obviously signed a new contract with the Rams, but was it 1 year, 2 years? Coming towards the end of his career. Could Brock Purdy be the next quarterback for the Rams in the 18 months' time if things don't materialize contract wise with the 49ers? I think watch that space. Watch this space, isn't it, really, on that situation? I won't be, there is some potential sort of landing options for Purdy, out there with some that have obviously got players coming towards the end of their career. Arizona, will they eventually sort of decide to move off Murray? They would take Purdy. Purdy's much better than Murray. I think Tampa Bay look quite sort of settled, with Baker at the moment. I think New Orleans would take Brock Purdy in a heartbeat. Carolina would take Brock Purdy in a heartbeat. Atlanta would take Brock Purdy in a heartbeat. Um, Minnesota are wedded to JJ McCarthy, but we'll see how that's going to pan out. At the moment, he's still coming off a serious injury as well. Green Bay are wedded to Love for a while. The Bears are wedded to Williams, come what may. Unless it, please God, hope it's not a bust. But they're wedded to him for at least another 12 to 18 months. I would have thought. And Detroit aren't going anywhere, but with Goff at the moment. So yeah, there's obviously quarterbacks that are sort of floating around, out there like Kirk Cousins, but he's probably only going to be another 1 year sort of stopgap somewhere. Um, you look at what's out there, in terms of sort of Russell Wilson. But I think teams have relatively moved off Russell Wilson. Now Aaron Rodgers will be coming to an end soon. As well. So yeah, so I wanted to really sort of go through that area for you guys because I think that ultimately there's a lot of talk about the contract, the contract situation for Brock Purdy. There's so the contract situation for Brock Purdy and the leverage always being with the 49ers. But I think in reality, we live in a supply and demand world, and there's a shortage of one amazing quarterbacks. Is about five, six. There's a shortage of very good quarterbacks, and there's a whole lot of either ones coming towards the end of their career. There's at least sort of 6 to 10 of those. Ones that are robust. There's another 6 to 10 of those. The draft, the quality of the sort of draft this year in terms of quarterback isn't that one isn't deep and two isn't as good as previous drafts. And I don't think next year's is that phenomenal. And so I think, yeah, looking forward, really, guys, when people were sort of, it's not me being on the defense of Brock Purdy, it's me just being objective when people sort of discuss, oh, yeah, oh no, the supply and demand. What supply and demand? Just gone through the entire roster of teams. There's at least 15 teams that would be improved by having Brock Purdy. There's at least 5 or 6 teams that are desperate for a top quarterback. If there's 5 or 6 teams that are prepared to bring Aaron Rodgers in, that is way past his best, and to try and rescue a situation. So if they're prepared to do that, I'm pretty sure they'd be more prepared to take a Pete Brock Purdy. And so look, past that Aaron Rodgers or a Pete Brock Purdy is not, you take Brock Purdy each and every day on that front, and you're being silly if you think any other way. And so, bottom line is, would you rather have a past it Russell Wilson or past it Aaron Rodgers or Pete Brock Purdy? There's 15 teams I've just reeled off who don't really have a set quarterback. There's another 5 or 6 teams that have got young quarterbacks that are still in a position where we don't truly know where that's going to be. There's 5 or 6, maybe 5 to 7 teams that are probably rock solid in terms of where they're at with quarterbacks. So look, Brock Purdy doesn't need to have 15 options. But look, believe me, if he was out there now and teams thought they could get him, they would go after him. And I think you're just being silly if you think that that's anything but that case, because on what basis wouldn't you? I think too many people are basing Brock Purdy. Just go, they just get bogged down on comparing his talent to Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. Oh, he's not as quick as Lamar. He doesn't scramble like Patrick. He doesn't throw like Stafford. It's like, in what basis in the NFL did anybody have to be a top 5 quarterback to get paid top 5 money? About 75% of the quarterbacks in the NFL get paid mega money and they're nowhere near what they're worth. And so you're asking Brock Purdy, who's actually done more than at least half of the quarterbacks at half the teams, to then get paid less than all these other quarterbacks that have achieved nothing compared to what he's achieved. And regardless of how well you think that, you know, um, regardless of how well you think his team's been stacked in his favor in terms of, oh, he had McCaffrey, he's had like wide receivers, and like, right, first of all, his defense wasn't the second coming of Pittsburgh, or the Ravens of the past. It was a good defense. It wasn't that great. His wide receivers aren't Jerry Rice and Justin Jefferson or Randy Moss. Yeah, he's got a great tight end in terms of George Kittle and a great running back in terms of McCaffrey. But yeah, like, put a little bit of respect in terms of like his wide receivers are not the best wide receivers in the league. Brandon Ayuk isn't a top 5 receiver. He's not a Jamar Chase. He's not a Jefferson. So great to hear your thoughts on this, guys. I wanted to really just sort of put a bit of perspective in terms of where Brock Purdy stands within the marketplace. And people talk about, they can hold out. And my bottom line is, if I was Brock Purdy, personally, I'd back myself, know full well that the marketplace is got a massive shortage of top quality quarterbacks. You're proven that you're a top quality quarterback. There isn't enough quality quarterbacks around right this minute. Half of them are going to retire because they're getting old. Half of them are not anywhere near as good as you. There's not any depth in this year's draft in terms of quarterbacks. The ones that are going to go high aren't as good as you either. Next year's draft's not that much better. And so, frankly, yeah, right. You may not be Jaden Daniels, or you may not be Mahomes, or you may not be Josh Allen, or you may not be Lamar Jackson. But frankly, you're better than a lot of other people that have been paid more, and you deserve every penny of 55 million. And I don't see a world in which anyone can make a case that you don't deserve 55 million. Your talent is on par to a lot of players that have been paid that money. And yes, people can have the gripe that some players shouldn't have been paid that money. No, they shouldn't. But then if everything being equal, Patrick Mahomes, should be very simple. Patrick Mahomes won, and then a tier of the top 5 should all earn the top 5. But it isn't the way in which the NFL works, because it's supply and demand. You've got teams that have got no talent, and equally, the only way they can attract talent is to overpay them. It's just truth, isn't it? And it happens in all sports. And so, it does set a distorted marketplace. But in this case, if they want to keep a talent in Brock Purdy, he may not be Mahomes, and he's not, and he may not be top five, and he's not, but he's sure as well top 12 quarterback in the league, and that's certain for me. And put some respect in him. At the end of the day, he could start for at least 15 teams in the NFL. At least 15 teams would bite your hand off for Brock Purdy. And the people that say no should have a long hard look at all the starters that are starting for those teams, and then have a look at all the veterans that are floating around. Like your Russell Wilsons and Aaron Rodgers. That he's miles better now. On that front, and people are still chasing them. And then there's a whole host of quarterbacks that haven't proven anything yet, have talent, have high ceilings, but your Caleb's, your Nicks, your Drake Mays, yeah. So they got potential, and that's all they've got at this stage, JJ McCarthy's. So we'll see, guys. Be great to hear your thoughts on what you think about Brock Purdy. I say it's not me chasing him to be the best paid because he's the best and most talented. I position Brock Purdy in the top 12, whether that's 10, whether that's 11. Should he earn more than Mahomes? Of course he shouldn't. But then none of them should earn more than Mahomes. If everything being right, it should be one, two, three, four, five. Best, the top five quarterbacks earn what they earn. And so, yeah, he should be earning like the 11th best money. But unfortunately, you've got players like Kyler Murray that are not in the top, probably even in the top 15 for me, that, are earning decent money. And Dak Prescott shouldn't be anywhere near the level amount of money that he's earning, but he is. So great to hear your thoughts, guys. Speak to you more soon. Take care.